Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us this evening. My name is James Blaine. I'm the College Programs Coordinator here at Porter College. Welcome to the Porter College Family Orientation for our incoming transfer students. This evening, this Zoom webinar will be recorded and we will have it posted on the Porter College YouTube channel, which is Porter College Squiggle Broadcasting, in the next couple of days. It takes us a little while to download and get it all processed through, but the webinar will be available for review in the next couple of days at Porter College Squiggle Broadcasting on YouTube. We would like to start this evening with land acknowledgement. The land on which UC Santa Cruz is located is the unceded territory of the Awaswas-speaking Yupi tribe. The Amamutsan tribal band, comprised of descendants of the indigenous people taken to missions Santa Cruz and San Juan Bautista during the Spanish colonization of the Central Coast, is today working hard to restore traditional stewardship practices on these lands and heal from historical trauma. The agenda for this evening will be a presentation from College Housing, followed by a short Q&A. And then I and Althea Pearl Carlson, the Assistant College Programs Coordinator, will do a short presentation on college student life, followed by a short with a Q&A. And then we'll just open it up to a general Q&A. Presenting this evening will be Kathy Cooney, Associate Director of College and Student Life for Porter College and Porter College, Kresge College, and the Redwood Grove Apartments, as well as Mike Yamauchi Gleason, who is the Senior Director for Porter College, Kresge College, as well as Rachel Carson and Oaks College. Myself, as well as Althea Pearl Carlson, Assistant College Programs Coordinator for Porter College. Before we do begin, if you have any questions, please feel free to use the Q&A function. There should be a little button that says Q&A at the bottom of your screen. And with that, Kathy, Mike, why don't we just hand it over to you?
Thanks, James. I'll start us off. Once again, I'm Mike Yamauchi Gleason. I'm the Senior Director of College Student Life for Porter, Kresge, Oaks, and Rachel Carson colleges. I oversee all the student life functions of all 4 colleges, and I'll be working closely with your students and the staff to make sure that your student is supported in any way that we can provide. I just want to kind of give you an overview of what it's like to be here at UCSC and also at the Porter transfer community, and just some of the things that your son and daughter can look forward to, and also some of the resources that they will have. I've been here on campus for about 20 years. And I was actually one of the founders of the transfer community at Porter, along with a few other colleagues. And so we're really excited about this program. Although many of our transfer students may live across campus, a significant number of them do live at Porter in an intentional community. And they typically are in A and B residence halls, as well as Redwood Grove apartments. Some of the staff that's available to provide support include myself and Kathy Cooney, as well as our CREs, our coordinators for residential education. These are live-in staff. They work very closely with the RAs and that will be supporting your students. And also we have an Assistant Director of Residential Education that works closely with CREs as well as the RA staff. The RAs are students. They tend to be sophomores and juniors. We have a few seniors. They will be living on the floor or in the apartment complex with your son or daughter. The ratio can vary anywhere between 35 and 50 students, depending on the living area. And the RAs, they're a really good resource, and I really encourage you to have your student get to know them. We'll have a lot of activities from the very beginning, from move-in to welcome week. Well, they'll have an opportunity to meet their RA. The RAs are a great resource. As I said, I've been here a very long time. I've been in the profession for a longer time, and I know a lot about college life, but I haven't been an 18, 19, or a junior or a senior for a really long time. But the students, RAs, they've lived the experience recently, and they really know the ins and outs of the university, and they're a great resource. Other staff that we have available to support our students, we have our Community Safety Officer Program, CSOs, and they work from 7 p.m. to 3 a.m. 7 days a week. And their primary job is walk through the housing and residential areas, just looking for health and safety issues and also to provide support as needed. We also have a police department here on campus that provides additional support, and we have a fire station on campus. And so there's lots of resources 24/7 for our students. We also have a really strong counseling program here on campus and several offices that provide a lot of outreach to our students. And students will have an opportunity to learn a lot about these resources through Welcome Week. And we also have an activities fair. James and Althea may talk about it a little bit later, but there is an activities fair that all our students can participate in. And this is where all the groups on campus get together and students can go and talk to them about their interests and find out things that they can get engaged in. In terms of health and safety, we, as I mentioned, we have a lot of support here. We have a lot of staff, both student staff and career staff. And so we know a lot of what's going on, but we don't know everything. So one of the things that you can really help us out with is if you see that your student may be struggling or have questions, really encourage them to reach out to the staff. The RAs may be the best first choice for them, but reaching out to any of the residential life and the programming staff is a good resource as well. And it's also good for them to really reach out to their faculty and their advisors. The things that's a little unique for our transfer population, all of them are coming in as juniors, so they all have declared majors. And so they kind of have a dual support system when it comes to advising. They have the advising at their college of affiliation. And this is really an important thing because not all of our students that are transfer students living in Porter are affiliated with Porter College. So they'll get their college advising from their college of affiliation. So if they're a Crown affiliate, they will go see the advisors at Crown College. If they're a Rachel Carson student, they'll see the advisors at Rachel Carson. Now, the college advisors are kind of the generalists. They make sure the students have all the requirements they need to graduate generally. And they're also a good answer for quick questions or just kind of what the flow of the academic year is like. The advisors that they really want to get engaged to as well as the advisors from their department. And those are the advisors that really can share with them what they need to graduate with that particular degree from that department. And so they really need to stay connected with both of the advisors. They'll probably initially spend some time with their college advisor, but probably spend a lot of their time with their departmental advisor. And then at the end of the time they're here, when they're getting ready to graduate, they'll be checking in again with their college advisor to make sure they have all the graduation requirements fulfilled and so they can walk across that stage. And so it's really important for them to get connected. One of the nice things about having students from a variety of affiliates, and one of the benefits of being a student in the transfer community from a different college, is you get the benefit of participating in all the activities and events that are at Porter because you live at Porter, but also you can get engaged in all the activities of the college affiliation. Now, a lot of our programs across campus are open to all students, but there are some special programs that are just specifically for college affiliates of a particular college. And so it'd be important for your student to get engaged both at Porter and what we're doing, but also get engaged at their college of affiliation. So they kind of get the best of both worlds. They get a chance to reach out beyond Porter and really get to know other parts of the community. Some of the things that's really important, I know our transfer students tend to be older, but oftentimes this may be their first experience living in a different environment other than with their family or friends. And so you may see some pulling away, or you may have some concerns that they may not be as successful as you think they should be, or they may not be asking for the help that they need. And so I'd really encourage you when you get that phone call, and you will probably get that phone call with any questions or concerns, that you just ask them some basic questions initially. Just asking them if they've reached out to their advisor, have they reached out to the faculty member, have they reached out to TA, have they talked to their RA, have they talked to the CRE, have they gone to some of the other resources we have across campus? Because right now, what we're really hoping students begin to learn, and some of our students already have this, is to really be strong advocates for themselves. And so that's part of our teaching process, is to really encourage students to advocate for themselves. And we're always here to help provide direction and support along the way. The other thing I think it's really important is to figure out how to stay connected. And families will do that in a wide range of things. When I went to college many years ago, I agreed with my parents that I would call them every Sunday morning just to check in, and that worked for the next 30 years. And so whatever works for your family, whether it be a weekly phone call or emails or text messages, stay connected, because that's really important. My son just graduated from college a few years ago, and he wasn't a big phone call kind of person, but he did take text messages. And so we kind of connected that way. And every once in a while, we'd have a Skype conference call. So whatever works for your family, but it is important to stay connected. In terms of COVID-19, your student should have gotten lots of information about what the expectation is for campus. We expect all our students to be vaccinated or to have filed an exemption form through the health center. We also expect our students who've been vaccinated to make sure they include that information on their health center information. So eHealth Messenger is where students can find their records and where they can put their information. Our goal as a campus was to have at least 90% of our students vaccinated. And right now we're at 92%. So we're exceeding that goal. And so the more students that get vaccinated, the better. For those, when you first come on campus, if you're vaccinated, within the first 5 to 7 days, we'll ask you to get tested again, because we're asking you to get tested before you come. We'll ask you to get tested again. And if you're vaccinated, unless things change, that's all you need to do for the first 5 to 7 days. And then testing isn't required. Weekly symptom checks are, though, or daily symptom checks are, and that's something that your student will get sent every morning. And they just have to fill out the symptom check. It takes about 30 seconds to fill it out. All the staff have to do that as well. And so that's something that we're used to doing on a regular basis. For those who have an exemption, or they're going to be required to test twice a week, and if things change, maybe more often. So one of the things that we really want to do is provide a safe environment for all of our students because of the pandemic. We do have a quarantine and isolation space here on campus. It's at the Village, which is one of our residential areas. And so if someone needs to be isolated or quarantined, we have a system all set up to make that happen. And we'll provide support to that student if they're in isolation or quarantine. We'll make sure they're doing okay. We'll make sure they get meals and provide whatever support we need to do. So that's one of the things that we really try to do. And the really important piece of keeping healthy and safe on campus is that all the students do what they need to do and meet our expectations. And as the pandemic changes, our rules and expectations may change as well. But right now, it's about being vaccinated. It's about, if you're indoors, wearing a mask. And it's about just being safe and taking care of yourself, because in taking care of yourself, you're taking care of others. And so with that, I'll just turn it over to Kathy, and she can talk a little bit more about specific housing issues.
Thanks, Mike. Appreciate it. So I'm going to talk about a couple different things. I'm going to switch up a little bit my order of the slide. First, I'm going to share a little bit about the residence hall. If you're living at Porter in either the transfer community or the Porter B building, we do house transfers in both buildings because our class is quite large. I think we will have about 675 transfer students that will live with us between Porter and the transfer community and Redwood Grove. So it's quite a significant number of students, and I think we are over almost 60% or more transfers of the entering transfer class is living on campus this year. Rooms come with a dresser, wardrobe, desk, chair, a bed, which is an extra long twin mattress. So if you need to buy sheets, is you want to buy for extra long twin mattress. And depending on the configuration of your room, if you are in a triple, possibly in some doubles, the beds may be lofted or bunked. And that's to be able to accommodate the number of people and all the furniture. When you're planning on packing and bringing things to campus, one of the things that I suggest is to really think about what you need and what might be things that you don't need in the moment. The rooms are limited once you get 2 or 3 people in the space. Even a single, it's nice that you have that space by yourself, but there may be, depending on what you choose to bring, the space might be limited. I'm a strong recommender of having seasonal, bringing things seasonally. So, maybe it's if you have the ability to go home or to ship things in fall, you're only bringing what you might need for fall quarter. And then if you go home for one of the breaks, is to think about taking home things you're not using or needing, and then maybe bring back things for winter quarter. So that way you have more space and can accommodate your belongings. All the students living in the residence halls will have either a 5 or 7 day meal plan. So a 5-day meal plan is Monday through Friday, and a 7-day meal plan is all 7 days of the week. Students can eat in any dining hall, and it's an all-you-can-eat. Dining is all you can eat, so you can go in as many times as you'd like during the day. If you want to have 3 meals a day and go in for a coffee and have a snack or eat a late night dinner, you're able to do that. Students aren't limited to a specific dining hall. So even though you might be living at Porter and Kresge, you may be on Science Hill or the other side of campus, in a dining hall in those areas may be more convenient for you. Our dining service is self-operated, so we're not run by a corporation, which allows our dining staff to really put their own twist on some of the menu items and make them very tailored to our campus community. Lots of organic foods and locally grown foods. One of the questions earlier was about the affiliation and how that fits in. I believe it was like how it fits in with housing, and what it means to be assigned to a college. As was shared, is that students are assigned to college, so you're part of one of 10 colleges, and that's kind of your home base, as Mike shared, for advising and your commencement. And then you live in the transfer community, which was an intentional community. We developed it as a way to provide better support to our transfer students. So instead of being sprinkled across the campus, you're living together with a number of a few hundreds of students who have had a similar academic path as you have. And we find that that's one aspect of the transfer community that our students have really appreciated, is because going from a semester school to a quarter system, it can be a little bit of a challenge, and it's nice to be around people who are understanding that and can help support each other as you make those transitions. Now, some students may be living in places outside of Porter and the transfer community or the Redwood Grove, and that's because we have transfer hubs. So those are extensions of the transfer community where there's a small critical mass of individuals living together. So we might have we have a hub, and so some of your students or you may be living at Cowell or Stevenson or Crown colleges, which are hubs, or the University Town Center, which is our off-campus location downtown in Santa Cruz and right next to the bus station. And that's just an opportunity to allow us to really house a significant number of transfer students who desire on-campus housing. And so we've been able to create these mini communities where there's still transfer support. your students have received a couple communications from us. They should be able to have seen and accessed their room information and roommate information if they have roommates. If you haven't found that information, it's located on your housing portal. And it's not your university portal, but you have a housing portal. And your roommate information is there on how to contact each other. We strongly encourage folks to touch base with your roommates in advance. That way you can talk about, one, getting to know each other a little bit in advance, but two, if there's things that you would want to share in items in the room, like let's say that you all are interested in having a microwave or a mini refrigerator. Talking about, who would be willing to bring that item, or are you all willing to share that, is helpful instead of coming with 3 mini fridges or 3 microwaves. So we encourage that outreach in advance. You also would have received an email last week about signing up for a move-in appointment. That's going to be the time that you arrive to campus to begin your check-in process. And I'm going to say just briefly about move-in day in just a little bit. And then there's been another communication about all things related to COVID, steps that you need to take before you come, and steps that you'll need to take once you're here, and on move-in day, and then once you're here. And so if you're, what I would suggest if you're a student is to share that information about move-in and about the COVID information with those people who are helping you if they're coming with you on move-in day, so that they know kind of what to expect. And because anybody who's assisting students for move-in will need to do what's called a symptom tracker. So they won't necessarily need to take a COVID test in advance, but right now we're asking them to do a guest symptom tracker, and you've been provided that information. And I believe there'll be one more communication coming out from our office shortly, and that will have a little bit more about move-in. Move-in day is an exciting, crazy busy up day because there's lots of people arriving, and there's lots of excitement with moving in and getting to know roommates and meeting floor mates. And basically, what you need to know is to show up on your appointment time and to make your way to lot 126, which is called the arts lot. That lot is where you're going to participate in what we call staging, and that's going to be your check-in, your first check-in point. From there, once we have spaces available at either the Redwood Grove or at Porter, we're going to have your car come up to the college to unload, and you'll have about 15 minutes to unload your belongings and take them to your room. We have laundry carts, these big yellow carts that you'll be able to check out to assist you with bringing your belongings from the parking lot up to your room. Both of our buildings are 6 stories. We do have an elevator, and there is usually a little bit of a wait for an elevator because folks will use the carts to bring their belongings up, but we just ask for a lot of patience on move-in day. And everyone to do their part to kind of stick to the schedule and to the timing of things so that we can continue to get everyone in as smoothly as possible. I think that's what I wanted to say on move-in day communication, general information on what to bring. There's a number of questions that are coming through. Althea, would you like me to wait a little bit on questions, or would you like me to answer a few now?
Let's see. I mean, it's totally fine with me if you'd like to answer them now, and then we can move on to activities after you've answered some.
Okay. So one of the questions that I believe I answered, but I just want to reiterate, if you're not sure where your student has been assigned, they can go into their housing portal and they can look up their information. If the information is TC-A, those folks are living in the transfer community or building A at Porter College. If it's PR-B, then they're living at Porter B. And then if it's RG, it's Redwood Grove. And then each of the other communities have their own either building names or building codes, but there should be information that designates or describes which college they're housed at. Question for next year's housing, little early on that, but students can apply to any housing community. And so your student may elect to apply to their college of affiliation for housing. That usually takes place in the spring. And so there'll be a lot more information with kind of general points that come out in winter quarter, towards the end of winter quarter, and then room selection and more detailed information will come out in May. But students are welcome to apply to any of the college housing units on campus.
Kathy, there was a question earlier regarding COVID, and I don't know the answer to that. So maybe Mike or you could. It is there a possibility that a student who is vaccinated may be housed with a student who is not vaccinated, or how is that being addressed?
Sure. Thanks, James. Mike, do you want me to answer that, or do you want to?
Yeah, go ahead, Kathy.
Okay. So that is a possibility, as Mike had mentioned, that all students need to be vaccinated, or there is the ability to request an exemption. Those exemption requests are vetted by the health center and the health center director. And we expect very few of those exceptions to be granted or requested. And so the majority of our students will be vaccinated, and you will show proof of vaccination. We won't know that information because it's medical information that's protected by what's called HIPAA. And unless a student was to share that directly with us, we would not be provided that information. But the health center is actively involved in reviewing requests for exemptions. Question about lofted beds in the double room, and can you request it? The way the furniture is set up in the room is the way it needs to remain. Our facilities has it set up for specific reasons, and it may be working around other furniture, or it may be because of different ways that the room is set up with piping and the heaters and things like that. But we also don't have the staffing to be able to make all these adjustments the way each student would like. And so we do ask that folks leave the configurations in the way that they are. If students do adjust the configurations, many times it can cause unsafe situations because of the way the furniture has to be affixed together. But also that we would charge students at the end of the year for having to relocate the furniture in the room. There's a question about how do I make an appointment for move-in? We sent that email last week, and it would have come through in email or posted on your housing portal. If you have not seen that email, I strongly encourage you to check your spam box. There are some students that the way their spam filters are filtering, that it's maybe filtering out your move-in information. So please check your spam filter first. And then if you are not able to locate it, you can reach out to us at transfercommunity@ucsc.edu. But that information was already provided to students. I'm going to pause right there, Althea, and let folks continue on with sharing other information, and I'm going to type some answers as well.
Excuse me. Awesome. Thank you so much. Yeah, everyone, if you would still like to funnel your questions into the Q&A, that'll just help us make sure we don't lose track of them in the chat. And James and I will give you our presentation about the Porter activities and student life, student life opportunities that we have here at Porter. And so I'll hand it over to James to introduce himself.
Sorry, I'm looking too many directions since I have several screens up right now. Hi again, my name again, James Blaine. I'm the College Programs Coordinator here at Porter College. A little bit about myself. I'm the product of two educators who were elementary school teachers up through middle school and high school. My father just retired from the high school board in Spotsylvania, Virginia, 2 years ago. So I'm the product of two lifelong educators. My own personal background is that I was 20 odd years down at UCLA. I have my BA in dance from UC Irvine. After being at UCLA for 20 years doing events and programs, I came up here as the college programs coordinator and have found that between my academic major in terms of dance and my upbringing in terms of education, the position of college programs coordinator at Porter College is just the ideal place because it allows me to really work with an exciting community exploring different creative avenues, as well as touch on some educational goals and how really they can improve themselves through learning as a continual thing, rather than just I'm in class, I learn, I'm out of class, I'm not learning. How learning can be a creative exercise throughout their lives. So I find it a wonderful experience for myself. All of that said, we take the approach here at Porter in our programs that we really want to give your students, your children, the opportunity to grow and try things new, and sometimes fail at those things, but do so in a way that they are not going to be at risk. I know personally, I have the most important lessons I've learned, I have learned the hard way in many cases, and I think I've come out better for them. So we really want to give your students the opportunity to say, I've never tried this, and here it is. I'm just going to see what happens. Do it and learn something from that. It may be a failure in terms of what they're doing, but it may be a great success in what they learn. And that's really what we're going to be doing with them, providing them opportunities to experiment, to try something new, to see something in a different way. Before any details, Althea, could you tell us a little bit about yourself and your background?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. So again, my name is Althea Pearl Carlson. I use they, them, theirs pronouns, and I'm the Assistant College Programs Coordinator for Porter College. I'm a recent graduate from UCSC and Porter College. I studied feminist studies and I got a minor in education. So I'm very passionate about the education world and how we can kind of come together and learn together and really build community through those experiences. My background is primarily in education, theater, and a little bit of medical for a second while I was exploring some different majors and opportunities for myself when I was a student here. And let's see. Yeah, I'm very excited to be working with you and your students this year. We love our transfers and are really grateful to have them in our Porter community here. So yeah, I'll hand it back over to James and we can tell you more about what the Porter Activities Office does, how we're involved in Welcome Week, and kind of how you can expect to see how you might expect your students to be involved with our office and can come in contact with us.
Yeah, really what's going to happen is once your students start moving in, we're going to try and provide them just mixing opportunities where they can get out and start to put their own rootlets down and build their community, meet their neighbors, meet their roommates, get used to who all is here. What that means for you during move-in day is, much as we would love to meet and chat with you all afternoon, we're going to actually hope that you get student here, get them unloaded, get them moved in, and then pull out the hanky and head downtown for a nice relaxed dinner. Speaking of that, if you really want some family time, if you're coming in the morning, please be sure to have your family time the night before. Actually, before the students get here. If you're coming in the afternoon, perhaps have a nice brunch together. But once your students get here, we really want to try and wrench them away from you so that they can start establishing themselves independently. That's where we find that the growth really starts, and we want to get them going as quickly as possible so that they can have a really good start on that. We're going to have a whole slew of different programs for them. There are a couple of mandatory programs, one of which will be Monday evening, which is a Title IX and CARE presentation, so that they know their rights and responsibilities, and they know the university's expectations of them. They will also have a mandatory advising session with their college advisors. If they're a Porter affiliate, that will be Monday mid-afternoon. Each of the other, if they're affiliated with a different college, they would be receiving that information from their college advisors. So those are two mandatory programs that they will have as transfer students. Tuesday is a day that is really dedicated to getting all of our students academically oriented with their departments. As transfer students, I'm sure your student has already declared a major, so they will be spending a lot of the time on Tuesday with their major, or perhaps majors if they're double or if they're multi-majoring. We have just a lot of other programs that we want to do to get your students physically oriented to not only the campus and the college, but also how to get into Santa Cruz, the town itself, how to get back, learn the bus lines, find out how they can take public transit from Santa Cruz over to the Bay Area, and from the Bay Area, how to get out if they want to take a trip home but don't have a car. There's public transit. We want to make sure that they know how to navigate that successfully. The goal really is, as I said, to give them the opportunity to try something new, hopefully something exciting, and to not be afraid if they fail, because failure is part of learning. You know, that's our whole goal, is to really just get them out there, get them to put some roots down so that they can establish themselves, so that the next time you see them, you will just be overjoyed, not simply because you're going to see them, but you realize, wow, this is there's a whole new aspect of my child that I've never seen before, and be able to take some pleasure in that. Althea, do you have anything specific to add along those lines?
I guess the only thing that I would like to add is that your students will may see, if they're living in Porter or if they're around on campus, they may see James and I around campus or around Porter. So they're always welcome to say hi and ask if there's something coming up or if there's an event going on. We have our Porter College calendar, which I'll pop in the chat, which is how you can stay in the loop on our upcoming activities and events during Welcome Week, particularly the non-mandatory ones that are really just opportunities for your students to get involved and have an opportunity to connect and talk to each other. And let's see. Lastly, we have some orientation leaders who your students may encounter as well, who, if they see them, they're more than welcome to reach out and ask questions, or if they see them at an event, you know, feel free to use them as a resource. And then I think that's it for me.
Okay, so with that, why don't we just go back to a general Q&A, because I think that's where the real interesting items are going to be answering your questions. So we'll just move to a general Q&A at this point. And see how we want to do that. Let's see. We have potentially roommates. I think we've answered that one. I don't think we answered a question here. Do family and friends that are helping students move in need to have COVID tests ahead of themselves? Do people helping students move in, what sort of documentation is needed from them?
I can answer that one. Whoever is assisting the student in move-in, they will need to fill out a symptom tracker, which is our daily questionnaire that the university requires faculty, staff, and students to complete. And it can be located on the Health Center webpage, and maybe we can find that link if it's possible. And there's an option to click for guests. And that information may also be provided in the emails that have come from the university about all the COVID requirements.
All right, let's see. sorry, reading through questions. A question regarding someone who is going to be staying home for online classes. Does he lose his housing spot if he stays at home for the full quarter? And do they get billed for that?
So I'll answer the question in the way I think that it's being asked, but if I'm not, if it could be posted again with clarification. If the student has applied for housing and has been assigned a room in housing, they will be billed for the quarter, whether or not they stay in their room. So I had a couple students ask me this summer, they want to guarantee that they have housing for winter and spring quarter, but we're thinking about staying home for the fall quarter, but still maintain the room. And so I made sure that the student knew that they would be financially responsible, even if they weren't physically staying in the room. We do anticipate that students are welcome if they stay home in fall quarter to apply for housing for winter and spring quarters. And we recommend that those applications come in, let's say around October or November. Again, there's not a first come, first serve application. We just take the applications at the time, and then based on space availability and student preferences, make assignments usually at the end of November, early December.
In terms of assignments and whatnot, there's a question about are students assigned certain beds in their rooms? Choice of sleeping accommodation, upper or lower, solo bed if it's a triple, those are decided by the roommates. Part of that question, I think, is several attempts have been made to contact the roommate and they've been unsuccessful. Is there something that the college can do? I think that's sort of out of our hands, I believe. Is that correct, Kathy?
Yeah, that's really left to the students to navigate and negotiate, those agreements. I really can say for the most part, I've not had a lot of students need our assistance intervening, that they've been able to work it out with their roommates and being able to talk through what the needs are. I think one group became quite creative and did a rotation every quarter because that's how they wanted to and agreed to it. But we usually don't intervene with that, and people are not assigned specific rooms or specific beds, sorry.
Another question regarding student IDs, which is when students will receive their student ID when they check in. A question regarding move-in, is it okay to bring two vehicles to move in, i.e. one that belongs to the student and the other car is helping them?
Yes, while we encourage people to come as compactly as possible, we do know that at times there may need to be the assistance of a second vehicle, and we ask that you try to arrive together for that appointment time so we can keep your vehicles together when we send them up to the college.
There are a couple of questions about the restrooms, description of locked door and so on. Kathy or Mike, could you give the description of what the restrooms are and the joys and challenges of sharing a restroom with 30 other people?
Sure, I'm happy to answer that. And then Althea, if you lived in the halls, which I can't remember, but I think you may have, you can share from your own personal experience. The bathrooms have multiple toilet stalls, showers, and sinks, so multiple people can be in the bathroom at the same time. Our showers have locking doors, and I believe there is a changing area and then the actual shower itself. It might be a little congested the first couple days of the quarter because students haven't gotten into their traditional schedule that they will once they have classes. But students really figure out how to work it out on a floor where everybody's able to do the things they need to do, and there's plenty of space to be able to do that. So it's just going to be probably the first couple of days it'll be a little more congested, just like the dining hall, because everyone's on the same schedule until they get into their classes. And we also have card access. So the student, to get into the building, students will need to present their student ID to a card reader, and that lets them into the building. And then we have a battery operated Onity lock, like hotels have, where the student will use their ID to then get into their bedroom. And we also have those same locks on the bathrooms. So students will need to carry their ID and they can dip into the bathroom, and the bathroom doors are locked and only available to the people of that floor.
There are a number of questions about multiple cars coming in right now. And Mike, you have a pretty good response to lots of things coming in. And I'm just anticipating sometimes multiple cars might be more than one car stays and one car goes. So it might be 2 cars full of stuff.
Well, yeah, that's the thing when you're working with your son or daughter to bring stuff. If you need to bring a U-Haul trailer or multiple cars to haul their stuff, they have too much stuff. So they really need to pare that down. And I know people like to have their stuff with them and they want to bring it all. But if they're sharing a room, whether a double or a triple, it's better to be more minimal to begin with and to get stuff later. Because if you have way too much stuff, it's not going to be very comfortable. And so just try to monitor that as much as possible. Kathy, there was a question. I don't know if you answered it or not. You may have, and I was typing. The one says that there was not a move-in appointment available. What should they do?
We'll look at the schedule and we will add some more times in there. We did add what was enough. We're finding that people have signed up for multiple times and then are canceling them. So we're going into the schedule and making those online again. But we will go back and add, just give us another day or two for us to be able to do that. And then I'm looking see if I can find information on the tracker, although I think that will be in the email that the students have already received, as well as will receive probably another reminder, but I'm looking for that information.
And I'm sorry, I completely forgot to give Althea a chance to share their real world experience of the restrooms and bathrooms. So Althea, did you have any words of wisdom for our families and residents?
Yeah, I did. Thanks for leading that in. So I would just like to say everything Kathy said totally reflects my experience. That was super accurate. I would recommend shower shoes. That'll make this, it's always a good idea. Some cheap flip-flops, dollar store flip-flops are fine. And I liked having a kind of towel-like robe, but you could use just to get to and from my room for ease. And my last thing is to, I guess, underscore what Mike said about bringing things. Definitely pack light. You can always bring more later. I brought way too much stuff when I moved in because I was kind of like, I'm leaving home. I'm launching from the nest. I'm bringing all my stuff. Don't bring all your stuff. I brought a few boxes of books. Very silly because I was only doing the reading that I needed to do for class and I didn't have time to read the other things. So that would be my emphatic suggestion to you all so that your family isn't porting home your stuff that can't fit on your way back. That was my experience. All right, and I will give it back to the questions.
There were a couple of different questions regarding housing situations along the lines of if I'm in the residence hall, can I change at some point during the quarter or during the year to a different, whether it be a single or into an apartment? If I'm slated for Porter B, will I be there the whole year? Will students have the ability to change their accommodation type during the year?
Sure. We will not be making any changes for the first couple weeks of the fall quarter, because we need to get everyone settled. And if we're making assignments still for people who are on a wait list for housing, we want to be able to get them into spaces. We really try not to do room changes in a sense of If there's a conflict, we really want folks to try and talk through and work through those conflicts. And then if they're not able to do so, then we look at a room change for them. But we really, if it's around room conflicts, a lot of times those can be resolved if people are willing to work with their RA, or we have a gifted restorative justice coordinator on campus who helps have communication circles with students. And we've had many successful discussions where roommates were able to resolve their issues by working through with her. If for those who are interested in a single, we have a very, very long waiting list and very few single rooms in our community. But you're welcome to check in with us, I would say mid-quarter or later. And then if there are changes, asked for specifically, I think in the question about moving to an apartment, you can always inquire. But it just depends on if we have openings in space. And the same goes true for changing to another college, that students can definitely request that, but it's a matter of whether they have space.
Kathy, there was a question about the 5-day meal plan. On move-in, because typically 5-day is Monday through Friday, but on move-in, they'll be able to eat on the weekend. Is that correct?
That's a good question. There might be information on the dining webpage, but if I remember correctly, in the last couple of years, they were flexible in opening up the weekend for students who are on the 5-day meal plan. So I'm not sure if they're continuing that program. I'm assuming so, but I'm not sure.
But there is a dining page located on the UCSC webpage. And so go ahead and check it out.
I just added the link in the chat.
Oh, good. Thank you.
There's a question regarding a student who performs, a musician. Kathy, you can certainly talk about the house rules regarding amplified sound and so on in the residence halls. But from a program standpoint, I'd just like to let you know, we will be, we're taking on the challenge of hosting live open mics in a time of COVID. So we're really looking forward to the performers that will be in residence with us or in the community here at Porter College. But in terms of the rules and for living in the community with an amplifier, Kathy, could you address that?
Sure. Students are welcome to bring an amp or amplified instruments, but we ask if they're going to use them, that they need to use headphones. So amplified music in itself is not permitted within the residences or directly outside the residence unless we're having a specific program like an open mic, as James said. We just ask students to use headphones. So having the amp in itself is not prohibited by the university, but amplified music is something that we ask folks to use headphones for. And the same.
Kathy, I'm sorry, go ahead.
And the same holds true, that just like loud TV or video games or, amplified music, is we want to be able to provide an environment in which people can sleep and study, and that it supports their academic success. And how I like to explain it to the students on move-in day is we will have between A and B buildings, so that there's a quad area between A and B buildings, they form a quad. We will have 1,000 students living in that community, and some students will want it quiet as a pin, and other students will not even notice if it's loud. And we have to find a happy medium. And so that's why we have some of these expectations around noise and bass and amplified instruments and such.
Kathy, there were several questions about the contracts. Do they need to apply for each quarter? Is a contract for the whole school year?
Sure. The contract is for the whole school year. You don't need to reapply for each quarter. If you have a need to terminate your contract, you can request that through your housing portal, and the request will be reviewed. But you've already signed up for a year-long contract for your housing. Usually a question that comes up that I will just insert here as well is, as part of the contract, students will need to vacate their residence over the winter break. And the university also goes into what's called curtailment, when all faculty staff also need to vacate the university and are not, the university is closed. Students don't need to take their belongings, but they're not able to stay and they're not able to come back and grab things from their room. So they really want to plan in advance. Spring break and Thanksgiving break are covered under the contract, and so students can remain in housing.
There's a question on rental fridge versus buying. The first thought there is have the roommates discuss with one another who wants to bring what, if anything. There'd be nothing worse than 2 or 3 families showing up with fridge microwave combos for one triple. That could make for a very, very snug room. So first off, make sure that you coordinate with your roommates. In terms of whether it's better to buy or rent, that's a decision you should make. If you're going to use it at home afterwards, I think maybe purchase is fine, but the university is doing everything it can to reduce waste. So one of the nice things about a rental is when you're done, it will go away, as opposed to you make a decision whether you want to add that into the load of things you're picking up. And very often we find things are left. So the university is really struggling, as are so many people, with how to reduce solid waste on campus. So the more we can do to reduce things that are left is really what we're after. And that includes when you're moving in, if you can pack things in reusable containers and take the containers home with you, as opposed to single-use boxes, things like that. The university is really struggling with these issues to be a good neighbor to the community and of course in the environment. Kathy, there's a question on the 4th floor of the transfer community. Is the 4th floor of the transfer community a single gender floor?
I could take a minute and I'll look that up. I don't recall where all of our theme and single gender areas are, but if you give me a minute, I can look that information up.
But so there will be some single gender floors, so that
Yes.
Given availability to change if necessary, that is not necessarily out of the question.
No, it just depends. Like if somebody wants to move into a single gender floor, it just depends on what space is available. There's questions that students thought that they only selected a single gender floor, and if their application said that they were first wanting single gender, second mixed gender, that did not necessarily guarantee that they were getting a single gender floor. But if somebody put single gender and will not accept mixed gender, they most likely are on the single gender floor. But it all depends on space availability.
All right. Oh, sorry, I jumped ahead there. That's better. Oh, here's the second surfboard question. The 2 surfboards, long and short, in a triple is one question, and the other question is a longboard 9 foot 8 inches in a single. I'm not sure. I suspect those boards would fit in the room. I can guarantee it would be awkward getting them through the halls to get there. And if your student is living with somebody other than somebody who sleeps on a surfboard, it might be awkward. But Kathy, do you have any more definitive answer than that?
It will take up a lot of space. I think it depends on how much other things folks bring, but we've had handfuls of students that do bring their boards and they fit it into their triple room with their roommates. It just depends, but I think bringing up boards and surfing is one thing is to think about is, I know you needed to hang your wetsuit to dry it out. And while there might be pipes in the room for the sprinklers, we don't allow students to hang things from the sprinkler pipes. They usually cause problems, and we don't want to break sprinkler heads and pipes. But also, some students will try and hang the wetsuit out the window, and that actually has caused significant damage and expense to students because it bends the frame. So that's one thing you're going to want to think about is, how do you intend to dry your wetsuits as well? But students managed to figure it out.
All right. Oh dear, I'm seeing that my internet connection is unstable, so hopefully that won't affect everybody. The question on the restrooms again, is on a mixed gender floor, the restrooms are the same on all the floors. So they'll have the same degree of privacy with a locking shower door and a changing area within the shower before the shower itself, multiple stalls and so on, multiple sinks. But are there floor plans available or sample floor plans available that people can take a look at?
We don't have floor plans available online, unfortunately. Yeah, unfortunately, we don't.
I noticed a question in the chat. What is the policy for visitors on the first move-in date? So I think that might be asking maybe what the COVID policy is for people that are coming with students on that first date.
Sure, I believe that information was provided in a recent email to students about the move-in day COVID expectations. And the university expectation is that folks unload their student and then depart the university right afterwards. Still in trying to take serious precautions. This is what we did during this past academic year, and between the university's cautiousness around policy and expectations of students, and students doing a really good job of following those policies and caring for each other. Our number of on-campus COVID exposures were very, very limited in comparison. So, again, we're taking a lot of precaution coming into the start of the school year, and it is part of that is asking folks to leave shortly after they unload the vehicles.
We have two sort of travel related questions. The first one is regarding bicycles. As you can see, I commute by bike. So there are bike racks, exterior bike racks here at Porter. We also have a few they're not coin operated, but paid bike lockers, which are very inexpensive, but it's an hourly, it's like 5 cents an hour. However, if you're thinking about bringing a bicycle to campus, unless you always ride a bike now, you might want to rethink that, or perhaps take advantage of the bike library program that is offered through our transportation services TAPS, to find out what it's like to actually deal with a bicycle on campus. The campus is, if you're not familiar with it, very hilly. Although I commute by bike, getting from point A to point B via bike is actually not nearly as convenient as walking or taking the shuttle, simply because of the hills and the roundabout nature of the roadways here on campus. So if you're thinking about a bicycle on campus, unless you know you're going to ride the bike, or you ride that bike because you're a recreational cyclist and that's what you do to relax, you might want to rethink that, certainly for fall quarter, and perhaps make that something to bring up winter quarter. The other travel question is, how does traveling mid-quarter affects one's housing? I'm not quite sure what that means, but if you're going to be absent during the quarter, there's no credit given for being absent from housing during the quarter. However, you would, of course, want to make sure that you coordinate with your advisors, department, and college to make sure that you don't miss out on any of the academic requirements. Is there any other accommodation for travel during the quarter, Kathy or Mike?
None that I can know of at this time, James.
Okay.
And there's a question, how many electrical outlets are in a single room? I guess one thing off the top of my head is, Kathy and Mike, are there still, I guess, plugs in the desks? Is that a thing?
Good question. there might be Althea.
Okay, sorry, that might have been kind of a really strange specific.
No, I can't remember if this furniture that we have now has those or not. But students are allowed to bring a power strip. But we do ask that it be a quality power strip so that, students, it does trip if they overload it. We do ask that students not bring like the octopus adapters and such, because those become unsafe. And the fire marshal does not allow for those. But power strips are fine. As to the number of outlets, I honestly, I don't know off the top of my head.
Thanks, Kathy.
Kathy, there are a couple of visitor questions. Again, I'm sorry, I didn't catch whether you went over that, but could you just review the visitor policy in terms of number of visits or total number of days and any restrictions that a student might have on visitors?
Sure, that information is listed in the terms and conditions, and that's the housing contract. I will have to pull that up to get the specific number of days, but I believe it's no more than 3 days in a row. There's a certain number for the actual year, and we ask that people talk amongst with their roommates, because that is an added, if it's an overnight guest, that is an added person into a space that will already be full. But it's specifically laid out in your housing contract, which is the terms and agreement or your lease that you signed with the university.
And speaking from a program standpoint, again, we're looking at programming in a time of COVID. So yeah, under normal circumstances, if a student has a guest with them, both student and guest would obviously be welcome at any of our college programs. However, the student is responsible for their guest and the behavior of their guest per the student code of conduct. In this time of COVID, we're not quite sure what that means to have a student having a guest coming to a program. We're still negotiating that. So that's just something, if you as a parent are coming in, we don't have too many expectations that we're going to have bad behavior. But if it's a high school friend coming up, it's just something that, people grow differently. So we want to make sure that our students are aware that if they have a guest, they are responsible for their guest's behavior and making sure their guest understands the rules of the community so that there aren't any problems. In terms of, we have a question, the student hasn't signed up for a food plan yet, I guess. What are the options the student has on campus? I know that dining services would be happy to provide them a meal plan at any time they would like to add one. But other than dining services, what options do we have for them? I know we have a number.
It'd be easier to drop the link in the chat so that folks can see the dining webpage, but students automatically in the residence halls have a meal plan, either a 5-day or 7-day. When they applied for housing, they had to preference one or the other. If the student happens to be in an apartment, they do not have a meal plan, but they can elect to take a voluntary meal plan, or they can do what's called Flexi Dollars, and that's basically having cash on your card to be able to eat at the dining halls and at different cafes on campus. Students who are on the meal plan also get, I believe it's $50 of Flexi Dollars each quarter as part of their meal plan. And you can replenish Flexi Dollars as often as you'd like.
And Kathy, looking forward to perhaps next year when some of our residents this year have decided to move off campus, they would still be able to purchase one of those sort of non-affiliated meal plans so that if they're spending all day on campus, they may be living off campus, but they would still be able to access our dining halls?
Yes, they can absolutely carry Flexi Dollars or a voluntary meal plan if they wish. Can I jump in, James? I'm seeing a number of questions that people are having difficulty with the link for the appointment times, or they're saying that there's not appointment times. I just looked at the calendar and there actually are a number of appointment times. And so I'm not sure what the challenge is. When I look at it, it says there are no appointment slots available at this time range. And then under it, it says next available appointment slot on September 18th, which if you click, that will show times. If you still cannot find that information, please make sure that that you email us at, just send it to Porter Housing. Even if you're in the transfer community, just send it to porterhousing@ucsc.edu that you're having problems with the link, and we'll resend the link directly. But I do see a number of appointment times still available.
Kathy, there was a question about someone who is an early arrival. They're coming in on the 15th. Are they going to get information, or have they gotten information of when they need to come and where they need to go?
If they put in a special early arrivals request, we're still reviewing those, and we'll send them information soon about what they need to do.
Thanks.
I think that is really most of our questions, I think. There are just a lot of them. I'm trying to scroll through.
Sure, James, I've got a few as well that
Okay.
I've seen. And please forgive me if this has already been addressed. I was pretty engrossed in the chat. Can I visit my student on the weekend during school years? So we've addressed that. Okay, cool. And then
I should say it has been addressed, but yes, please do. Staying connected with your student is really it's vital to them. Much as I said earlier, we want them to start putting down roots for themselves to really grow and discover who they are. Staying connected with family and loved ones is really, really, really important. And if that means you send them just a favorite treat periodically, just, whatever it is you can do to stay connected, we really encourage that. But at the same time, we don't want, we also discourage, though, students staying so connected with home that they don't put down those roots. So it is a matter of finding a balance, but certainly you are more than welcome to visit your student on the weekends.
thank you. There's a question, and I can answer this, on if there's air conditioning or fans in each room. There's not air conditioning or a heater in each room. It is, kind of self-regulated. So students have a window they can open because we get this marina layer. It's like this big layer of fog that comes in during the night. It's really nice to open your windows at night, cool down your room, and you can close them when it becomes daytime. So I would recommend just a fan would be a nice thing to have in your dorm room, but you won't need, you won't need a heater or an air conditioning unit. And what furniture is there in the room? Each student will receive a desk it has a little shelf on top and some drawers, an XL twin bed, whether that is in the bunk bed or if that's on the bottom bunk or if it's the lofted bed. And essentially like a dresser wardrobe unit with some drawers in it and some little shelves and a little rod so that you could have some hanging clothes. And I think, and of course, overhead light. There's a overhead fluorescent light.
But there's no task light on the desk. Is that correct?
There is a task light on the
Okay.
desk, but if you would like a more focused task light, it's not articulatable. It's just in the unit of the desk. So you could bring another one. I see a good question. Would I have space for my desktop computer in a triple? Yes, you could put your desktop computer on your desk, but it might take up a significant portion of your desk. So you might be, needing a little bit more space, like maybe a lap desk or something if you had to physically write notes or physically have a book open, but you'd still be able to fit your book on the desk.
A question regarding Flexi Dollars and do the residence halls have a community kitchen? Flexi Dollars depends how much you spend. The Flexi Dollars are usable at a number of the the cafes on campus. And those are, you know, it's market rate food. It's not underpriced by any means, but it's good food. So how long they last is really going to depend on how much somebody wants to utilize them. In terms of, oh, I just lost that question.
You can always add flexi dollars
yeah.
at any time.
Yeah. I've just lost the other part of that question. I'm sorry. Oh, well, so there we go. There are some filtered water stations. I know that there's one in the dining hall. Mike, do you know if filtered water stations were put in the residence halls?
Yes. There's one in each building on the main floors. I think second floor for B building. And is it the first floor for A building? Kathy, do you know?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay. Just so everybody understands, the second floor of the B building is the main entry level. The B building is built on a slight slope, so the first level is slightly below grade. The second floor of the B building is the level everybody enters on, so that is the main level. When Mike says the filter water dispenser is on the second floor, that is the main level.
And there's a question, can you go to a different college's residence or dining hall? The answer is yes, you can go to a different college's dining hall. You can go to all of the dining halls on campus, and you can go to all of the colleges, and you can technically go to those residence halls, but just like your students' residence halls, they have a security system in place so that only the students who live there can get in. So to get into that residence hall, your student would probably want to have a friend there. Or a reason to be there, but you can visit any part of the university.
Yeah, the meal plans are good at all of the resident dining halls across campus, which is very convenient because it does sometimes take a little bit of time to get from point A to point B if you're all the way across campus. And if you're running from a class that ends at 5 and to get to one that starts at 6 and you want to grab a bite, you don't necessarily want to come from Crown College back to Porter to go to Crown. So you can just stay at Crown College and have dinner or lunch there if you'd like. So having meal plans, having a meal plan is very convenient wherever you are on campus.
All right, we've got a question, and this might be a question more for Kathy and Mike. Are there notifications to other students when a student living in a residence hall tests positive for COVID? Of course, not naming the individual that was positive.
What we do tracking. The health center would take care of that. So if there's a student who may have exposed others in their community, that information will get shared, and those students will be notified of what next steps they need to take.
And Mike, along those lines, there is quarantine housing available if it comes to that. Is that correct?
Yes, there's quarantine and isolation housing. It's going to be located in the villages, which is on campus. We have 2 areas reserved for that purpose.
So that if we do end up in that situation, then the student is not necessarily sent home and they're not suddenly out of pocket for a housing contract that they can't fill because they have to be in isolation.
Right.
Good, okay. Let's see, I saw these questions just come and go so quickly.
There's a question, is there a curfew for residence halls? There's not technically a curfew in the sense that your student needs to be back in the residence hall by a certain time and that someone will check it. But there are quiet hours and essentially courtesy hours. And those will be posted on and available to your student. But typically, quiet hours start around 10 p.m. Well, actually, Mike and Kathy, do you have any information about quiet hours or courtesy hours this year?
Sure. Quiet hours are from Sunday through Thursday. They start at 10 p.m. and on Friday and Saturday night, they start at midnight. if, you know, it's if there's, if folks are disturbed by neighbors' noise and that, we really encourage folks to try and have those conversations directly. A lot of times, you know, people just don't realize how the noise travels in the building. And if you're someone who, just a pointer, if you're someone who likes or has a system that has fantastic bass, you're gonna wanna turn the bass down. It's not always the volume, but it is the bass. That does travel throughout the building and can be a disturbance to others. Quiet hours for finals begin at 10 p.m. on the Thursday before finals begin, and that's for 24 hours until finals are over. So we do want to make sure that we're trying to provide a quiet space for people to study and prepare for their finals. So it's 10 p.m. the Thursday before finals begins for 24 hours a day.
Thank you, Kathy. There's a question, is there a space in the library or in the transfer community to take our Zoom classes? The answer is yes. There are, both of the libraries will be open, and those are great places to do your Zoom classes. There are also a variety of study spaces and study lounges all across campus. So if you're living in the Porter transfer community, we have the Porter Student Study Lounge, and that is located by the Koi Pond. We also will have the Hitchcock Lounge available for you to study in, which is in the dining hall. I believe we also will have the iLounge back online and available to be studied in as well. Thanks, Mike. And the iLounge is closer to the Porter Apartments, but it's like a 2 or 3 minute walk from the dining or from the residence halls. And we can post a link in the chat about where some of the library and study spaces are, or in the, I apologize, in the Q&A instead of the chat.
And some of those things will be done sort of on the ground during those first couple of days before classes start. That's one of the things that our welcome leaders and RAs will be doing, is working with your students so they get to know the campus, so they can find those secret study spaces that they really like to go to, whether it be here at the college or another space on campus. So that's all part of the experience of getting to know the campus.
Yeah, and I guess one final thing to know about is that if your student might need a private study room, where maybe they just need to focus in a room alone and they're trying to prepare for something, you can go to the library and reserve a private study space. This also is good if you're working on a group project. So there are a lot of resources for study areas. How many bathrooms are there per floor? There's at least 1 bathroom per hall, and there's 3 halls per floor. So at least 3 to 4 per floor. Would that be true, Kathy?
Yeah, I just responded to that one. There are a couple floors that only have 2 bathrooms per floor, just because it's a much smaller hall. So there's 1 in each of the 2 sections. Otherwise, you're right, there's 3 per floor.
Kathy, there was another question about no appointments, and it showed up October 5th. What do you recommend? I think you recommend earlier to contact housing. Is that correct?
Yes, send an email to Porter Housing, and I'll send the link again. We had some technical difficulties earlier with our links, but then DJ, our housing coordinator, sent out emails to folks with the link in a very short email. But there are appointment times because I just looked at the calendar. So send us an email saying that you're having difficulty with the link, and we'll send it to you directly.
And that's porterhousing@ucsc.edu.
Kathy, kitchens, community kitchens for the residence halls?
There are none, no, but there is a kitchen in the I Lounge that students are welcome if they'd like to use it, but we don't have community kitchens.
And the iLounge gets closed up by the CSOs, so the campus security officers, around 1 a.m. Each night. So it'll be available till that time.
There's a question, will the answers to the questions from this webinar be posted somewhere?
That's a great question. So unfortunately, it'll take us a little time to basically port the questions out into a format that could be used, but we will be posting it on our Porter webpage. So that's porter.ucsc.edu. And we'll be posting that with essentially in a frequently asked questions format. Additionally, you will be available to view the recording for this webinar on our YouTube, which is Porter Squiggle Broadcasting. And we'll post the link in the chat as well for that. But unfortunately, the recording will not necessarily show the Q&A box. So we'll be posting a supplemental resource on our webpage soon. Thank you for that question. Can you eat in the iLounge? Yes, you can eat in the iLounge. Just clean up after yourself and be neighborly, but absolutely. Oh, and then I'm sorry, James, just one quick thing. Can you repeat the info on the iLounge kitchen? There is a kitchen in the iLounge. It is a microwave, a oven, and a stovetop. And you can use it, but you will just, there's no formal reservation thing, so it's first come, first serve. And on top of that, the iLounge closes around 1 a.m. So you would just want to keep that in mind. All right, sorry, James, go ahead.
But there are no utensils and whatnot stocked in that kitchen, so students would have to provide their own. Is that correct, Kathy? If they were cooking in the iLounge?
Correct. Yeah. We don't provide any cooking utensils, etc.
Okay. Well, I just wanted to let people know it is 8 o'clock, and we do want to respect everyone's time. So I think what we'll do is we will formally wrap up at this point. However, we will stay on the line here for a little bit to try and answer any remaining questions. So with that, I think we formally want to say thank you all for attending this evening. We're really looking forward to meeting not only your students, but you as well. And sorry, I just have to throw this in there. There was a question about when Althea answered the question about no fans in the rooms. Your students don't need fans in the rooms because they've got us.
We're your students' biggest fans besides you all. Absolutely.
We're the land of corny jokes.
Haha.
So again, thank you all for attending. We will stay here for a little while longer answering questions on the Q&A and chat. But this really wraps up our formal presentation. So thank you, and we'll look forward to seeing you all in just what, a week and a half. Oh my gosh. So good night, everyone.
Yeah, thank you for coming.
There was a question about late night dining. The Porter Dining Hall, once classes start, will be open 7 a.m. until 11 p.m. Sunday through Thursday. Friday and Saturday, the dining hall hours are going to be 7 a.m. until 7 p.m. So once again, the Porter Dining Hall is open Sunday through Thursday, 7 a.m. until 11 p.m. and Friday and Saturday, 7 to 7. Some of the other dining halls may be open slightly longer hours or slightly different hours, but essentially all the dining halls are going to be open Monday through Monday, 7 days a week, whether it's ending at 8 p.m. or 7 p.m. or 11 p.m. may vary slightly by the dining hall. Room size for a triple, I think.
There's a question I'll just address here. Just kind of going over the heating and cooling situation in the individual rooms in building A. So there's no AC or heating system in the rooms. They all have a window. You can get very cold air from the window because of our proximity to the coast. And I would say it usually doesn't get too cold during the winter, but you might want to think more about it getting a little stuffy and bringing a fan to just circulate air, especially circulating cold air in during the night can be a good way to do that.
Kathy, a Redwood Grove Apartments question. All of the apartments have kitchens. They're fully fledged apartments, but how many residents are allocated for each apartment? What is the room configuration? Do you know off the top of your head?
I do. It depends on the specific apartment, but it's either 5 students or 6 students.
Students can students have a portable heater in the residence halls? I think the answer is yes, but they cannot have open element heaters. So they can't have one of those sort of glowing radiant heaters. Is that correct?
Correct. And also it needs to have the auto shut off tip feature. So if it gets tipped over, it will automatically turn itself off.
Security. Okay, we have that one. So I think we're doing very well here.
Yeah, just to anyone still kind of sticking around, we've kind of, we're coming to the end of a lot of our questions. So if you're sticking around, just know that you're released, but if you'd like to stick around and see what questions might pop up, you're welcome to be here. Yeah, it was great to have you. We're looking forward to moving your students in and getting to know them all and making it a great year.
Good. An overnight guest in a single room, as long as you talk to the resident of the single room, yes. The same guest policy, however, applies in terms of number of nights during the quarter, consecutive nights. Even though it's a single room, the same guest policy applies, but yes, you can have a guest in a single room.
There's a question, can you bring an air purifier and air humidifier? The answer is yes, you can. Cool idea. I like the idea. That's a good idea. I would just caution you not to use the air humidifier and the air purifier at the same time, because the moisture from the humidifier can mold and mildew your filter. So just alternating might be beneficial to you. I learned that the hard way.
Refrigerator and microwave in a triple, absolutely, but please be sure that the roommates chat before arriving. There would be nothing worse than having 3 small refrigerators and small microwaves all arriving at the same time for the same room.
And Kathy, just to confirm, there's a question where the new appointments for drop off or for student move-in. It's still best to email porterhousing@ucsc.edu and you'll get, they'll be able to talk to you about it there. Is that best?
Yeah, folks can do that. I'm just looking at the calendar and there's still a number of appointment times available. There's probably a good 50 to 75 appointments still available. So if you're having problems getting the link, then we can send you the link again. If you haven't found that letter and you don't think you received it, I encourage you to check your spam filter in your spam box because we do find that some students' information is going to their spam box because of the way their filter is set up.
And just one last question. This would be their UCSC email address.
Yes, correct. And also, I believe you need to use, well, it's better if you use your UCSC email calendar to schedule your check-in time. Although I do think that there are students who are able to use their personal Gmail as well. But it's time to start using the UCSC email addresses, because that's where we're going to send all of the information from different offices is going to come to UCSC email address. They won't send it to Gmails and other personal addresses.
Thank you, Kathy. Yeah, I guess just a tip from myself to everybody out there. If you are with your student, or you could tell your student to just make sure they check their UCSC email before they get to campus or before they come to campus. I did not. And then I found out that I had like an assignment due that day and I had to bust it out, and it was very stressful. I did submit the assignment and it went okay, but I don't want you all to experience that. So check your email. And if you're having a hard time accessing your email, there's ways to resolve that. And we have some IT people available for that. So just check that email.
All right. So I have not seen any new questions coming in. There was one that was sort of waiting, the room size for a triple. Oh, I see you're typing that now, Kathy.
Yeah, I'll just answer that live.
Okay.
The room size for triple, they vary slightly, so it's hard to say it's this many feet by this many feet, because the wall might jut out a little bit here. There might be a pipe there. Some might be a little bit wider, some might be a little longer. It just depends on the room. But so it's really hard to give the dimensions.
All right.
And then while we're all here, I'm just going to drop into the chat our Porter Instagram. It's at porter.college. So if you or your student would like to follow that, that is where we post a lot of our flyers. And we also do a weekly live streaming of feeding the koi fish their dinner. So you're very welcome to participate in that and keep an eye on that if you would like. So I'll just drop that in the chat. And I will also add again the Squiggle Broadcasting link, so you can kind of have a heads up on where to find this recording once we post it. Yeah, thank you so much for attending. We really appreciate all your great questions and your patience as we answer these. We're really looking forward to moving your students in and making it a super awesome fall quarter.
So Althea, I think we're ready to end the meeting whenever you are.
Awesome. Great.
Okay, bye all.
Bye all.
Bye. Thank you. Have
Bye.
a great
For
night.
coming.
All right, good.
All right. All right, everyone. The YouTube is in the chat. And if not, have a great night. Get some good rest.
All right. Oh, wow, we're real people again.
Oh my gosh. Whoa.
Okay.
Hi, James.
Hi.
All right, everybody. Unfortunately, I'm gonna kick those of you out that are still here, not because we don't want you here, just because I have to close out the meeting. But thank you so much for coming, and please don't hesitate to reach out if any questions come up. Just know there might be a little bit of a delay with our email responses right now, just because we're getting a lot of inquiries. All righty. Bye-bye.